Welcome to episode 1 of the Hidden Agendas Report. There are so many things that I would like to discuss. For instance, I would like to talk about ICE and the operation that goes on there, trying to remove illegal immigrants from our country. There's a lot to be said about that, especially with everything that's happened in Minneapolis and other places. I'd also like to talk about George Floyd and Michael Brown and the way they happen to be killed. Then, of course, there's President Trump, a president that I believe is doing a good job while being his own worst enemy at times. I think he knows more about what's going on in the world than the average person is led to believe, and again, that's due to the media. I'd also like to discuss illegal immigration and the effects it's having on our country. Then I'd like to discuss the investigative techniques that we now use every day that weren't available back in 1967 when Pauline Pusser was murdered. There's also the O.J. Simpson situation and the murder of his wife Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. There's a lot of things here that the average person doesn't know. I'd like to talk about the Manson family and what all happened there with the murders of several people, including Sharon Tate. Then, of course, there's the situation in Iran that we're experiencing right now with them trying to build nuclear arms. That's something I'd like to address, something that a lot of people don't fully understand, and a lot of people have trouble getting behind the president on this one. And then there's one of my favorites, the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Who would have thought that in such a short time that so many Americans would have no idea of who might have been behind this? It's a very complex story, a very interesting story, and something I like to discuss with a lot of people. There's also the battle that seems to go on forever between liberals, progressives, and conservatives. It seems like that, again, due to the media, people don't understand what the situation really is, what's at risk, what's not, and where some of these things could take our nation in just a very short time. There's also the situation with the Supreme Court I'd like to touch on. People on the Supreme Court, the justices, they don't have to be lawyers. They don't have to have a career in law enforcement. They don't have to have a career as a prosecutor. They just have to be nominated by a president and be voted on in Congress. And it just seems like that's wrong, that we can have people sitting in that position that have no intention to follow what the Constitution says. The Constitution is an amazing document when you look into it. And it's hard to believe that our founding fathers knew so much so many years ago about what might happen. There's Vladimir Putin in Russia. What are his plans? What does he want to do? Is he trying to reestablish the Soviet Union as it once existed? I think that's where there's a good possibility that he is. And then there's China. Look at what they're doing. They are trying to place themselves above all other nations. And it would have a devastating effect on the United States if we allowed that to happen. You look at what's going on right now with the economy, with jobs, with tariffs, the production of chips that are used in computers, electronic devices, all this are made in Taiwan. What happens if they take over Taiwan? Can we allow that to happen? There's also the razor-thin majority that the conservatives hold in the House of Representatives. Did you know that there's only 18 seats that are really up for grabs to speak of in the upcoming election? The margin is that close, and that's something that we need to touch on. So many crimes I would like to get into, so many different investigations I would like to discuss. It's just unreal how much is out there that I would like to cover, and it seems like for the last several years all I've talked about is Buford Pusser. Interesting subject, no doubt. My absolute favorite of all times, but I think it's just time that I get out and I manage to speak about some of these other things that I have some knowledge about. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me, but that's what conversation is. So if you're ready for a little fun, a little conversation, and you don't want to get too overheated, you need to tune in for this. And please send me your suggestions about things you'd like to discuss. That's what makes it interesting, is when we hit on topics that everyone likes. And it's like I've said, the Thursday episodes will still be about Buford. We're still going through the TBI's file. We've got a lot to discuss there, a lot to learn, and so we'll just move forward with that. So be sure and tune in on Saturdays. And I'm going to try to share a lot of things that most people just don't realize. You ought to find that interesting. At least you'll find it controversial. So we'll see you next Saturday with another episode of the Hidden Agendas Report.